Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
You bet, we're ready.
JSC PAO, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Brandy Dean from Johnson Space Center's Public Affairs Office, and I've got the 14 members of the 2017 astronaut candidate class. How do you hear me?
Fantastic, Brandy. Great to be here with you today, and hello to all the 14 folks.
They're saying hi if you can't hear them. We've got on the International Space Station, we've got Peggy Whitson, Jack Fischer, and Randy Bresnik. Thank you guys so much for taking time out to talk with us today. And thanks to those of you joining us here at on NASA TV or on Facebook. We're excited to have you and to introduce you again to the new astronaut candidate class. We'll be taking questions from reporters and social media later in the event. So on social media, you can be submitting your questions now using the hashtag AskNASA or in the comment section of the Facebook Live. So Peggy, Jack, and Randy, I know you haven't met these folks in person yet, but I've got a room full of new coworkers here who are excited to talk to you. Just to go through their names real quick, we have starting over here, Kayla Barron from Richland, Washington, Zena Cardman from Williamsburg, Virginia, Raja Chari from Cedar Falls, Iowa, Matthew Dominic from Wheat Ridge, Colorado, then Bob Hines from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and now up here on the second row, Woody Hoberg from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Johnny Kim from Los Angeles, California, Rob Kulin from Anchorage, Alaska, Jasmine Mogbelli from Baldwin, New York, Laurel O'Hara from Sugar Land, Texas, Frank Rubio from Miami, Florida, and Jessica Watkins from Lafayette, Colorado. And then we also have the two new Canadian Space Agency astronaut candidates who will be joining the class, Ginny Seide from Calgary, Alberta, and Joshua Kutrick from Beauballin, Alberta. All right, Peggy, Jack, and Randy, I thought we could start out by letting y'all tell us a little bit about your time as astronaut candidates, and then I think they have some questions from you.
Well, astronaut candidacy was a long time ago. But I do remember being selected. It was still very exciting. That I found, you know, coming from a biology background, some of the classes were pretty challenging for me. Some of them were pretty easy, and you'll each find that each of you will have different expertise. And the thing I recommend is that you take advantage of each other's expertise and learn from each other. I think the biggest strength of the astronaut office is the differences in our backgrounds and the ability to share this information to make all of us better.
Yeah, and I totally agree with this Space Ninja because she knows what the heck she's talking about. You have to use we got a heck of an echo. You have to use everybody's gifts. So some folks are going to be good with certain skills like driving a robot arm or speaking a language or working with samples inside a laboratory. So everybody has a special skill set, and you want to utilize those among all of you. So it's an exciting time where you get to learn those new skills. Everybody's going to learn something new because nobody has all of that skill set. It's very broad. And then you go around. One of the most interesting parts of AskCan is going around to all the different centers and seeing the whole entirety of the NASA mission, and you get to understand how broad a scope NASA's mission is and all the different ways that you can help be a part of it.
And the part that stands out a great deal for me from my AskCan training was that you mentioned the varied backgrounds, but that we all ended up at the same place where we were all flying in T-38s, operationally proficient. We were all trained to be able to do the science experiments. We were able to do the hardware experiments, understand astrophysics. And even from all the different backgrounds where we had astrophysicists to educators to pilots to medical doctors, we were all able to come together and train to be able to do this same stuff. And it's neat how the different skill sets allow you to contribute to that end state.
All right, that sounds like some good advice to start out with, and I think y'all have some questions. Who's volunteering to go first? You might say your name so they know who they're talking to.
Hi, everyone. This is Johnny Camp. And one, thank you for your time and speaking with us. And as you may already know, ASCAN Day 1 training was yesterday for us, and we were fortunate enough to have a solar eclipse. And we are wondering what it was like for you.
It was really special to be able to share it with some friends up here, but see it from the opposite point of view that we get on Earth. It was, I think, to a person, it was much more impressive and larger in size and vibrant in color in some ways than we expected. And so that was really neat. And then the fact that we were this beehive of activity of cameras and videos and lenses and everything for the 3 passes, the one before the shadow hit the ground in the U.S., the one over the U.S., and then the one afterwards where we had the 85% eclipse, that just really made it fun to be able to go, okay, we're getting shots from a different perspective than anybody else on the planet, off the planet on our satellites, or any observatories we're able to get. And hopefully that was useful to you guys to be able to share in the experience from what it's like from low Earth orbit.
Hey guys, this is Rajachari. As we're about to start drinking from the fire hose of training here, one of the questions I had was, now looking back, what do you wish you'd pay more attention to in class? Is there a particular class or maybe an instructor that we shouldn't write off?
I think they do, a really good job of training, but everybody needs to know how to fix things. And so you need to get good at using tools and knowing how to fix things. That'll be an important part of your training. So pay attention to that part of it. It applies to almost every system. So, and that's what we spend a lot of time doing. And you can't be hesitant about taking something apart and putting it back together, because that's a lot of our job.
Hi, this is Jasmine Montbelly. First off, it's so cool to be talking to you all right now. Questions specifically for Jack and Randy as military officers. What were the similarities or differences between your previous military experience and training and the 2 years of ASCAN training?
I think there's a lot of similarities for the field type of stuff where you go and do kind of the small group dynamics. I think that's pretty similar. I think the academics are a bit different because they're so much more diverse. You cover a lot of things that you really just don't touch. As military test pilots, we really never worried about taking air samples, but lo and behold, you better know how to do that, because otherwise, and I have a friend, I heard about this guy who was floating around in the beam with samples going everywhere, and it was a mess. He probably should have paid more attention in that class. So I think that you have a similar approach in that the mission is the priority, but you have more of a small group dynamics that you need to focus on because the mission is so diverse in NASA or on the space station that, we can't say that our mission is to, go take out this target. It's our mission. We have no idea. From day to day, week to week, we don't know what the experiments are. So nurturing the relationships so that we're an effective team no matter what they throw at us is more important, and that's where there's a little bit of a difference. So it's really the diversity of things that you look at that we just don't do in the military. We're more focused.
Hi, this is Laurel. Go ahead.
I'd say that there's some similarities in that the deployment stuff, especially while you're ASCAN, are a lot shorter. You're talking weeks, not months, and stuff like that. Difference is, now that once you start training for a flight long duration mission, I started heading over to Russia in October of 2015, and by the time I launched, I had almost 1 year away from home between October 15 and July of 17. So in that case, it's a lot more like military deployment and the workups. And so your family has to be, prepared and ready for that. By the time I get home, it'll be well over a year within 2 years. So the good news is you got great communication. The technology we have to be able to, when you're deployed for the training or here on orbit, is phenomenal compared to military deployment. But as always, it's your family at home that carries the load and makes it possible for you to do this. I'm going to be up here in November when my daughter turns 8. I will have been up here in space for 2 of my daughter's birthdays, and that's tough. And if I may take a moment, today's my anniversary with my wife. I want to thank my amazing wife, Rebecca, for 14 wonderful years. I love you, and I wish I was there today to share it with you. And everybody needs to know that I am one lucky man.
Hi, this is Laurel O'Hara. Thanks for talking to us again. And I was wondering, in your ASCAN training, what was your favorite part of the training, and then what did you find most challenging?
My favorite part, I think, was flying T-38s. I think that was very, interesting, fun, challenging. I really enjoyed that. And I really enjoyed also the EVA training, again, challenging, but it makes you feel like, hey, I might be an astronaut someday. The worst part for me, the most challenging, difficult, not in a positive way, was Russian language. I just I'm still searching for the language center in my brain, and we really haven't connected well. So it's something that I will always struggle with, and it's just it doesn't come easy for me, and I spend a lot of time on it in order to be able to get by.
Are we going to do everybody answer every question, or are you just going to press on to the next one?
I think we've got another one ready for you.
Boom.
Hi, this is Jessica Watkins, and again, I just want to echo what a privilege it is to be able to speak with you today, so thank you for your time. This question actually is back to Peggy again. We were just wondering kind of the transition that you have experienced. Our class has a lot of women in it, and recently the 2013 class as well had a large number of women in it, and so we're just wondering what aspects of training maybe have seen that transition, or just kind of advice that you may have as a woman going through this process.
Well, I think my advice to you as women and to any of you candidates is really you've got to work hard. And I think that the most important thing that you're going to find in the first few years, but actually in your career as a whole, is that, there's a lot of things you won't understand, but it's okay to ask questions to a point. There is a limit. But understand and make your ideas known as well too, because once you have a feel after you've gone through for a year or two and you figure out what's happening and what's going on, you'll be seeing things that you're thinking, well, why don't we fix this, or why don't we fix that? Well, take some responsibility and help people fix it. Come up with solutions, and don't be the person that's just always asking, why don't we? Be the person that helps find answers, helps find solutions, helps find the better way to get things done. And I think it doesn't matter what your sex is, you'll do well in that situation.
This is Kayla Barron. Thanks for your time this morning. You guys touched on the importance of teamwork, and one of the most exciting things about this week for us, I think, is having Jenny and Josh here in our class being complete. I was wondering if you guys had any advice on working with our international partners, or any fun anecdotes about getting used to those new relationships.
Well, so we have Italian colors on because we have the Italian stallion down the hall here. It's important. It's really important, and it's not only important to learn the language, which I remember Peggy saying Russian is only tough for the first 10 years, which I still got a few to go. It's not just the language, it's the culture. And understanding what drives each culture and the background of a person, it's no different from how you would figure out how to get along with anybody in a small group dynamic. But the culture and the traditions that help make a person who they are important to understand and embrace. And we've definitely done that with our Russian crewmates. It's pivotal to understand where they're coming from and how they're going to react to a situation is to understand their background. So it's one of the most important things that you're going to do. And it's key to your success of being able to work with all the international partners, which this is an international team, no doubt about it.
All right,
and for the Canadians, you gotta, never mind.
No, please, we want to hear.
No, we got Canadians of our own, and they're wonderful.
All right. Well, this is Rob, so a little north of Canada, or at least parts of Canada, I guess. It's really good to see you guys. But I guess, you're on station now, so maybe tell us a little bit about some of the most challenging times that you've had on station and reflect on that back to your time during ASCAN training and what, what kind of parallels you have there or what ASCAN brought to that situation.
I think. Jack just pointed out I had to live with him for 2 months. Is probably my most challenging situation. But no, actually, I think probably the most challenging situation I had was we had a shuttle docked and we were deploying a solar array after we had retracted the arrays on a previous time frame. And during the deploy, we tore it, the array, and we had to come up with a plan. The ground team did a phenomenal job. They came up with a plan to fix it, but in that course of the 4 days, and we had some of the most sporty robotics going on. We had, an interesting IFM. I got to build some what they called cufflinks to hold the solar array together. And then we had to put the tallest EVA guy we had on the end of an arm that was extended with a shuttle arm as well. And we were able to accomplish it. I think that time frame was very challenging. We knew we couldn't undock the shuttle with a torn solar array. We'd either have to jettison, and we knew we couldn't retract it because it was torn. So it was very interesting time for us, stressful in the sense that we knew we had to have a solution. So I guess that would be the most challenging time. But the great part was that the ground team came up with just a phenomenal solution.
I think that may be just about all we have time for with the crew before we lose them. So maybe just one last goodbye and thank you from the team here on the ground. And we really appreciate you taking out the time from your day to talk with us.
Thanks so much, guys.
Well, thanks for having us, and good luck to you in your careers. And we can't wait to meet you when we get home.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event.
Thank you, JSCPAO and all NASA astronaut class of 2017 participants. We are now resuming operational audio communications. Great job.
We'll take questions. Hold on. Okay, so now we are going to take some time for you to ask these guys questions, get to know them a little bit better as well. You're taking questions online via social media. You can use the hashtag AskNASA or just comment in the Facebook Live if you're participating that way. And if you're a reporter on the phone, you can press *1 if you have a question, and *2 if it gets answered. We'll call on you. And then we also have here in the room with us some interns from Johnson Space Center who also just started here at NASA yesterday, so y'all have something in common. But we already have been getting questions online, so we'll start with them. We'll start with Jennifer from Facebook, who wants to know what jobs you'll be doing. Anybody want to take that one?
Yeah, I'll start. So our job for the first 2 years really is just to learn. We have a lot to learn. We're going to be professional sponges. So the training includes everything from learning the Russian language, like Peggy talked about, to flying T-38 jets, learning all of the techniques for spacewalking and all of the engineering systems on board the International Space Station. So that's our job for the first 2 years, and then we'll get assigned various other positions.
All right, and Manuel from Facebook asked, how can he be an astronaut in the future? So any tips for how to get where you are?
So I think there's, obviously, if you just look around in our class, there's a whole different number of different paths to wind up being an astronaut. So there's not one answer to that question. I think what all of us share in common, though, is we all did stuff that we really enjoyed doing. I think having a STEM background at some point in your education is that's probably the one thing you need to do. Beyond that, I think it's a matter of becoming passionate about what your job is and becoming the expert in it and continue to do great things in it. And there's military paths, there's non-military paths, but really it's just about enjoying what you do and trying to continue doing that and trying to continue challenging yourself, maybe going to do things that maybe are a little uncomfortable for you to do and expand what your knowledge base is.
Sounds good. Okay. Let me know if you have a question here in the room, and we'll get a microphone around to you. But while you're thinking about it, another question from Facebook. This is from Jace, and he says, "Hi, astronaut candidates, and what part of astronaut training are you most excited about?"
Matthew Dominic here. Really excited about hopping in the pool and simulating spacewalks and just working with teams of people as we try and solve problems here on Earth and train and get better at doing spacewalks for when we do it for real.
Okay. All right. Looks like we have a question here in the audience. I can get a microphone coming around to you.
Hi, my name is Paramita, and I'm a current intern in the Human Interface branch here at NASA Johnson. And my question for you, I'm going to kind of make it a research data point for myself. I work with future AR technologies for the next generation spacesuit. So as former pilots and people who have to have a high situational awareness at all times. I know not all of you are former pilots, but some of you are. And then people who are going to be going through training with lots of workload. What are some technologies that you guys would want to implement in a next generation spacesuit?
So coming from the F-35, there was a number of, so one of the challenges is the right mix of autonomy and human interface. And so that's still an ongoing, and as obviously you're doing, an ongoing area of research. I think some of the successful things have been, the more you can keep in what's the conscious field of view, so whether that be a helmet or eye trackers, 360-degree audio is a huge tool, so using your ear the way it was designed to and knowing exactly where sound is coming from as you're simulating sounds is a useful tool. And then some of the technology I know NASA is developing with checklist assistance, and there's a certain level of automation that can be too much, but a certain level of automation that you want to have happen. And part of that is a personal blend. So one of the things we've struggled with in the Air Force is having to tailor that to different people because everyone's different. So that's got to be part of your solution. It has to be tailorable. It's not all 14 of us are different. So what works for me may not work at all for Xena. And so there has to be some aspect where you can adjust it to the person.
One thing that I found interesting is we obviously haven't done any EVAs yet, but the people that have, and when they describe it, they describe it as it's about the same effort as running a marathon, and yet there's no sustainment really built into it as far as hydration and fuel. And yet nobody goes out and runs a marathon without hydrating and eating every couple miles. And so something that does that while maintaining the integrity of the spacesuit, I think would be an interesting thing to look at.
All right, I have another question from Facebook. This one's kind of interesting. What do you think your number one quality that attracted the NASA selection board was, and how did you highlight it on your resume or as you were doing your interviews? I know the process also was a little different for the Canadians as well, so maybe we can get NASA's perspective and a Canadian perspective.
So I think, again, the Canadian process is a little different than the American process, but I can speak to my experience. And probably the thing that I hope stood out during our selection was determination and resilience, because you're really put through your paces in the selection process, and something that I pretty much continually try to do is just not give up. I knew that if I dropped something, someone on my team was going to have to pick it up, and that was really important to me, to not make their journey more difficult, and to just put everything that I had into it. So I'm hoping, and I'm not sure, I can't comment on whether it did or not, hopefully it did because I'm here, but that determination and really being able to do that repeatedly, so resilience for me, I hope, shone through.
I would offer up similar things from my experience. I'd say, add on something that Raja said previously, we're all from different backgrounds. I think that's something that stood out in our case. You could almost call it an openness to new experience. So it's the fact that whatever your background is, you've always demonstrated an eagerness when faced with new tasks, new challenges, to really dive into them headfirst and to go through what you have to go through to get really, really good at whatever it is that you're interested in and whatever it is that you're doing. Because here, starting these 2 years with this group, it's all new. And there's, you don't go to university anywhere before this to learn how to be an astronaut. So that's pretty important.
And just a reminder for reporters who are on the phone, you can press *1 if you have a question to let us know, and we'll come to you. But I think we have a question now from Mark Carreau here in the room. And Mark, if you can address it to a particular person so they know who should answer it, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm going to fail at that part. This is Mark Carreau from Aviation Week. I found the last comment very interesting about your backgrounds. And so my question is this. Some military, some scientists, some engineers. How are you going to stay in touch with your core professions now that you're astronauts? Or do you feel comfortable that you can sort of let go of that at this point? Thanks.
This is Bob Hines talking to. I think that's a great question, and that's something that we're challenged with in the astronaut office. I've been here for 5 years, and so I've seen this a little bit. Still from the outside looking in, so I'll see it from a different perspective now. But I think the great thing with NASA and the astronaut office is one of the big things we do is outreach. We tend to do that a lot to school-age kids and things like that, but one of the other aspects of that is getting to talk to the professionals that are out there and the other entities that touch the technologies that we'll be doing or that we need developed in order to help us out. And so that's pretty huge. But also going back to the communities where we all come from, and that's really important. It gets more and more challenging as our numbers as an astronaut corps get pretty small. But fortunately, I think our class is going to be like 25% of the astronaut office by the time we're done. So hopefully we'll help the cause to that, and we'll be able to move forward and really help the outreach process here at NASA.
All right, and we've got another question here.
Hi, my name's Holly. I'm interning here at Johnson. I have a question for the women. You asked Peggy about how to, the challenges of being a woman as an astronaut. Do you have any advice for young women who are just emerging in the STEM field on being successful and making a name for yourself?
Okay, Jasmine Mugbelly here. So, again, I think a lot of us have, probably myself as, a Marine Corps Cobra pilot and being in the STEM background, certainly been in fields that are male-dominated for the most part. But that being said, I think the best thing that helped me was not focusing on that at all. try to excel in everything you do. Don't even focus on the fact that you're a woman in a male-dominated field, and work with your coworkers. Let them learn to trust and respect you, and you will, by doing that, you will then influence their perspective. Don't be the person who tries to use that to get ahead in any way. Be a team player, and don't even really consider it a factor for the most part. Would be my advice.
Caleb, did you?
I agree with Jasmine entirely. I would just add, don't be afraid to fail. I think that's something that was, kind of in the back of my mind when I was choosing to study engineering, choosing to go in the submarine warfare community, that you might feel like a spotlight's on you because there aren't as many women in your field, and that people are paying a little bit more attention to your performance and how you're doing. And I think if you do what Jasmine said, just focus on being part of a team and contributing, people really take that on board and try to support you. And then when you do fail or falter, you'll have people around you to help you move on from that and continue on. But if you let that fear of failure or fear of the spotlight on you get to you, you'll prevent yourself from really reaching for the goals that are important to you. So I would just encourage you to focus on overcoming them.
Changing tracks a little bit, Rudolph from Facebook wants to know if y'all are going to Mars, and maybe you can talk about some of the futures you envision at this point.
All right, everyone's looking at me. I don't know the answer to that. It's day 2, so they haven't told us that yet, where we'll be headed, but I would certainly love to go to Mars. I know that NASA really is looking forward to kind of expanding human presence in the solar system, and looking at long duration flights and pushing those boundaries. And if Mars is on the docket or at the end of that journey, that'd be really exciting, especially for me, someone who's done a lot of work on Mars. But yeah, I think there are a lot of exciting places in between as well, and I'd certainly be excited to be assigned to go anywhere.
All right. Another question from Facebook. What college majors are required for astronaut candidates?
I'll go ahead. So in order to be an astronaut candidate or in order to apply, you need a degree in a STEM field. So that's a science field, mathematics, engineering, science, mathematics, or engineering, really.
Good job. Yeah. All right. Any questions here in the room? Looks like we've got one in the back.
Hi, my name is Courtney, and I'm with the internship coordinators, and we'd like to say congratulations, first of all. And second, we all know that to raise to the heights of where you are now, that we can't get there without the people that are helping us up. And I'd like to know, are there any particular circumstances where someone has mentored you that you remember and it changed your life?
Yeah, I have so many examples of this, as I'm sure we all do. I could go on for half an hour. For me, one of the really breakthrough moments of my undergraduate career was I decided I really wanted to go to Antarctica, and I emailed, 80 different PIs, principal investigators, scientists who did research there. Just out of the blue, dear so-and-so, my name is Zena. I have no experience going to Antarctica. Take me with you. And of course, most of them didn't even reply. Those who did said, sorry, we don't have funding, or we just don't have room for you. You're an undergrad. But actually, a couple of them said yes. They took a chance on someone they'd never met and were willing to work with in undergrad. And so that's been something I've tried to pay forward in my short career. Is being open to taking high school students and undergrads on board, because it made a huge, huge difference for me.
And Matthew, did you want to comment as well?
Mine's a little bit different. I grew up. My family didn't really have any STEM background. My parents were amazing. My family was amazing growing up. We just didn't have STEM. Nobody had that field. Like, I did STEM as a child, and growing up, my parents provided all those things, but nobody in my family was in a STEM field at all. And I actually showed up to college wanting to be a political science major, and somebody told me, "Hey, well, you did well in math and science growing up. Why don't you become an engineer?" And I thought engineers drove trains. So he gave me an assignment to go look it up and figure out what it was, and I ended up becoming an electrical engineer as an undergrad. And that mentor, changed my life. I actually ended up looking him up in the phone book like 6 or 7 years later and just calling him and saying, thanks. Like, hey, do you remember me from 7 years ago? You told me that engineers can build things. They don't just drive trains.
Good advice, yeah. All right, so Christopher from Ann Arbor, Michigan wants to know, are you being trained for the space station or other missions? I know you're just starting your training, but hopefully you know a little bit about what to expect now.
I guess the answer is yes. This is Bob Hines, by the way. Yes, we're being trained for the space station, but I guess I've been quoted somewhere as saying the space world is our oyster right now. So we're at a very unique time, I think, in the space program, and it's pretty unique. You know, if you look at the history of the space program, it's been very linear up to this point. It's been Mercury led to Gemini, led to Apollo, which led to the shuttle. And now our class is unique in we potentially have the opportunity to be on any of 5 different vehicles between the Soyuz and the space station, which are currently out there now. Boeing and SpaceX are building a couple of vehicles. And then we've got the Orion and SLS coming down the pipe as well. So looking at the timing for all of that stuff, any of us would be thrilled to get on any one of those vehicles out there. I don't think anyone's going to turn down a space flight. Anyone? So yes, we're being trained. Initially on space station, we'll learn all the systems because a lot of the work that we'll be doing immediately following ASCAM will be directly supporting the space station mission. But in terms of space flight assignments moving forward, we could go anywhere. And it's an amazing thought to sit here and be able to say that. So we're obviously all super excited about the opportunity.
All right. I think we have time for one more question here in the room, if you've got one. Looks like there's a question here.
Hi, my name is Emily Malden. I just want to start by saying congratulations, and I'm excited to be here with you guys. I was wondering what experiments or pieces of technology you are looking forward to most, either during your training or while you're up in the ISS in zero gravity. What are you looking forward to most with technologies and experiments?
I think what I'm looking forward to most is just fixing things on the space station. I'm an engineer and a technician before this, and that's what I really like doing. So when things break and you have to go fix them, that's what I'm probably most excited about.
All right. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, sure. I can speak from a research science background. I'm a microbiologist by training, but I'm actually most excited not to be doing my own research anymore and to be part of something that's so much bigger than any of the research I could be doing on my own. And a lot of the research that happens on the space station has very direct applications, not only for the astronauts, but also for people back on Earth. So research on bone density loss in space has applications for bone mass wasting diseases here on Earth, and I think that's really cool. It's a great opportunity.
I guess we're all excited about technology. So as a hobbyist pilot, but with a non-military background, I think I'm really excited about getting in some really high-performance airplanes like the T-38, learning from my colleagues who have a huge amount of flight experience, and just becoming more solid as a pilot.
And then I'm an engineer as well. My name is Rob. I'm an aerospace engineer the last 6.5 years, but I come from a material science and a mechanical engineering background. But you know what? Kind of like Zena was saying, I'm really looking forward to doing things outside of my field. So I'm actually really psyched about the biology stuff. I kind of missed that from college. And with my material science background, actually, I think there's probably some bridging to be done there between biology and material science. And I know they do some fantastic experiments on station that you can't do on Earth just due to the lack of gravity up there. So yeah, for me, it's a whole looking and learning new things that I haven't been able to do these last few years.
All right, I think that's just about all that we have time for. So we're going to wrap up now, but these guys are just getting started. You're going to want to stay tuned on www.nasa.gov/2017 astronauts to keep up with their activities as they go forward in their training. And we actually just posted some videos of us asking them some questions as well, so you can get to know them a little bit better there. And then you can also keep up with them on social media. For now, you can go to the NASA astronaut account on Twitter, which is @NASA_astronauts. And that is going to be it for the day, but we wish you luck as you go forward into your training. Thanks for joining us.